It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two. Let's do this.
Hey, welcome back to Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to special guests about their paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
and your producer,
Riley Bray.
And big news, guys.
Yes.
We found Bigfoot.
We've got him.
It's done.
He's here in the studio.
He's here. Wait, where'd he go? Oh, we just had him, we swear.
He left a footprint on the floor over there.
Oh, wow.
That's
yeah,
all
somebody
we
get
need.
Bryce, go cook up the plaster. We got to get that. Well, we had him for a minute, and he got through our fingers once again. But in the meantime, I guess we'll just hang out here with celebrity guests. This week, we have perhaps one of the worst actors we've ever had on the show. Just kidding. This guy, he's a very talented actor. Not only is he just... He can be dramatic, he can be funny, he can be sexy, he can be goofy.
Wow, what a 180 from the first thing you said about him.
He's a good friend of mine. I work with him on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. He's been in Greek. He was on a show about oil in Texas. What was that called?
It was called Blood and Oil.
Blood and Oil.
It wasn't in Texas.
It wasn't in Texas?
It was set in
Alaska?
North Dakota.
Oh, North Dakota.
Yes.
Well, that was the problem. If you'd said it in Texas.
Oh, sure. That's always that's always a sure thing.
Yeah, right?
There's oil in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Like the X-Files that took place in Texas, or Golden Girls, or Roseanne.
You've discovered the formula.
Oh, you're just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend takes place in Texas.
Miami Vice.
Yeah, Miami
Texas.
Vice is in
Yeah.
Texas.
Texas.
Wow.
Law
I
and
did not
Order.
know this
Yeah.
Law
about
and Order's
shows.
in Texas.
I'm from Texas. I didn't know any of
Oh,
this.
oh
Well,
shit. We
you
better back
should.
away.
Fuck. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Scott Michael Foster.
Yay.
Hello.
Hi,
Oh my
buddy.
God. How are you?
What's going on? It's funny because when you walked in, you said we hadn't seen each other in a while, but I talk to you every
I
single
know.
day.
We talk all the time over
headphones. This feels very natural.
I know. Listening to your voice in cans on my head feels like the way we're supposed to communicate.
You know, what would just make it better is if you hear me yelling at my dogs to stop barking at the neighbors as they walk by.
Yeah. Or you taking a pee break.
Yeah,
every-
taking a
every
pee
20
break.
minutes.
We've done that.
Yep.
You have a very healthy flow, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Scott and I, we like to play Star Wars Battlefront 2 together.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Where we spend at least, I'd say, 3 nights a week.
Sure.
You know,
At
for an
least
hour or two.
Hour or two, 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
It's a hobby. I mean, at this point, it's a hobby.
It's a hobby.
It's not just a pastime.
It's a
hobby.
bonding experience.
Yeah.
Man.
Yep.
We've been...
We've had highs and lows.
highs and lows.
Yeah.
And
last night was a low.
Last night.
We had a bad low last night.
Real low. I was real. Sometimes I really feel like I let you down.
No. It was bad. We were facing up against some really good, talented
Yeah.
Darth Mauls
Yeah.
and Darth Vaders.
The problem is, so we'd
A
like
lot
to
of
play.
talent out
there. A lot of talent
We've been
out there.
focusing on Hero Showdown, where you are put in Jabba's palace.
This is
as
so
your
inside
favorite,
baseball.
I know,
No one's
right?
gonna know what we're talking about.
I hopefully some of our listeners
sure
will
they'll get
understand. But there's a thing that happens where if you're good guys, sometimes I like to be Ray. He likes to be Luke. I'm discovering I'm pretty good at Yoda
Yeah, and that's
and Chewbacca too.
Yeah, milestones.
That's nice.
But sometimes the bad guys, especially the Sith Lords, they run in a pack
tough.
and
They're
they will
tough.
just wail on you, and you have
there's no escape.
choice. There's
Yeah.
no
Right.
escape.
Yeah.
None. So we have fun,
We do.
and
We do have fun.
we have inside jokes that we won't get into. We come up with little songs.
Yep.
It's a good time.
We'll sing the themes to Star Wars over the headphones.
And substitute words like bagels and cream.
Bagels and cream, bagels and cream.
We also
That
do
works actually pretty well.
Donkey dong is another one.
Donkey
dong, 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 donkey dong, dong.
I mean, listen, it's endless hours of entertainment.
Guys.
Can we get a Roger?
Roger. Yeah.
Roger.
Or are you offering me a job?
Are you offering me a job? That's my Ray impersonation. Are you offering me a job?
That's so good.
Now I want to play.
Let's just skip this and play some
I
Battlefront.
want to watch you play.
Oh, it's a blast.
It's a good time. Every now and then, Burl Mosley from Crazy
Sure,
Ex-Girlfriend
sure.
stops by.
Who
He
plays
doesn't
Jim?
have the game.
No.
He'll just stop by and say hello because
Yeah,
he sees we're
on the headset.
Yeah, he'll be like, "Hey guys." Anyway,
Wow.
that's all. That's you know what? That's man's world talk. we need to
That's
talk
our new
about
segment.
That's a new
Man's World
segment.
talk.
Man's World. Out there is Bigfoot's world. In here, this is man's world.
There's a lot of good female gamers, man. I don't know.
Well, I just meant like the human world
Yes.
versus
Oh,
Paranormal.
that's
the
what you meant.
paranormal
Sure.
world. Like
Ah,
there's Sasquatch's world, and then there's man's world.
There's a
which-
lot of good Sasquatch gamers, though.
I bet so.
Ooh,
Hey,
I'm just
hit us
saying.
up. I'm not going to tell you my my moniker, although
Why
yeah,
not?
Why not?
Well, whatever.
Yeah, I'll think about it later. I don't know. We have a good thing going. I don't want to spoil it.
I do like though. This is my first time being here. I do like though that for the Bigfoot Collectors Club, you guys record in literally a cabin in the woods.
Yeah,
I mean, when I rolled up, I was like, "Oh man, I'm glad we're doing this during the daytime."
totally.
We've done movie. You'll have to come to our next movie night.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
You
creepy.
actually need to come. It is a great time. Actually, I'm making that official right now.
Okay.
You're going to come do a movie night
I'm
with
in.
us.
I'm in.
We'll have one for June. We'll figure that out after this is all wrapped up because
Perfect.
it is a blast. There's like crickets and frogs.
I saw the
and-
video of you and Pete and Bryce. You guys took a video of you guys hanging out afterwards.
Yeah.
And I was like, it is so dark right there.
Yeah.
We got a
I
little.
can't believe we're in Los Angeles. This is bizarre.
I
I
know.
feel like
It's
we're in the
great.
woods.
Well, that's the thing is I discovered. I met Riley. I discovered Riley in the woods. This is how it happened.
Not
hiding
everything
for
is a
30 years.
discovery, Mike.
We
I'll
have
tell you.
his footprints and everything.
Well, he's 7 feet tall. He's got long hair.
That's true.
He's living in the woods.
That's true.
I think I discovered it.
You should.
I was doing a podcast for Jen Kirkman over on Amazon last Christmas, around Christmas time, and discovered this guy. And I was like, I immediately texted Bryce and was like, I found our studio for Bigfoot Collectors Club. It's the place we have to be. And it's true.
Amazing.
It's like the
I mean,
best.
this is the place you have to be.
Watch out, Riley. There's a tipped over coffee cup next to your electrical cord. So go make sure it's safe.
Close one.
Close one.
Crisis averted.
But yeah, so that movie night with Pete Gardner, that was our Legend of Boggy Creek, which has been up now for a few weeks over on our Patreon. Go check it out. That was a wild night. We have a lot of fun. I may have had a little too much wine that night, but
No.
Did I? So okay, I was actually for people listening, I kind of came in on the last recording you guys did, and I heard a little bit of that.
yes.
Legend of Body Creek. Did that have anything to do with the Goatman thing?
No, but
No.
it's very similar. So that's in Fouke, Arkansas, and it was a Sasquatch that they used to see since the 1950s.
Based
running
on a true
around,
story.
Based on a true story, running around a creek system down in the swamps in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like local. You find out as the more you get into this. There's a lot of like local Sasquatch
Well,
in like rural towns.
I was just after I got the Wi-Fi code because we're in the middle of the woods up here. After I got the Wi-Fi code, I was looking up the story you guys were talking about, and it
the
turns
Lake
out
Worth Monster.
the lake with, but they called him Goatman.
yeah,
right?
or
And
the Greer Island Goatman.
Right, and I couple of things. I went on to Wikipedia, and it was like, which Goatman are you talking about? Are you talking about Wisconsin Goatman?
That's awesome.
Are you talking about Montana's Goatman? Oh, Texas Goatman? Which Texas Goatman? You talking about the Lake
There's a
Worth
few
Goat-
of 'em.
And then I found out that the Greer Island was renamed Goat Island.
Hey, you'd be good at
Oh,
this.
yeah.
I was just
I feel like I'm being replaced right now.
Anyway, so guys, thanks for coming in. I'm going to take it from here.
awesome.
I was kind of fascinated how much I was just like, there's tons of this in like every locale in the
Dude,
country. There's
yeah.
legends just all
After
over
we're
the place.
done, I want you to go home and I want you to Google Dogman because
Oh, God.
that is a whole
Okay.
other can of beef that
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, but dog food.
yeah.
Can of Alpo.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. There are some. There was a moment where.
Listen, we're running out of stories.
No. I was like, no. I did have a minute this weekend where I was like, fuck, what if we run out of stories? And that's what I was like,
I don't think you can.
No,
I mean,
you
good
can't.
God, it sounds like there's in every city in America.
Yeah.
there's some sort of like
oh.
unexplainable phenomenon.
And then
There really
we
is.
go around the world, and then you go to other planets. I'm going to tell you.
well,
we're
that's
never
that's
running
my
out of
thing.
story.
That's my thing.
What's that?
Aliens.
Aliens.
That's
so
my
you're
thing.
into aliens. Okay, cool.
Oh,
Let's get it.
good.
Let's ask
Well, I
you
got
what's
one
your
for you today,
What's
then.
your personal paranormal history?
All right. Well, actually, I was talking to you last night. I was going to ruminate on the whole, concept of the show, and I was like, I just don't know if I have any paranormal or inexplicable, thing that's happened to me. But then I remembered when I first bought my house
Happens every time.
about 8 years ago. And this isn't about aliens. This is something else. But
I was really hoping you were
Oh my
finding
God,
an alien in the floorboards.
yeah. I haven't. But this is I think equally as strange. I had lived there for about a month at this point. I had just moved in basically, and I was sleeping. And it was early morning, like maybe 7:30, 8 a.m. Right, and I woke up, and I heard someone washing their hands in the bathroom. The bathroom's like the one room over from me, and I live alone. At this point, I live alone, right? And I heard someone washing their hands, and like it sounded like they were like cleaning out a cup or something, or they were like like getting soap and washing their hands.
Like a jockstrap?
No, like a glass. You know what? Honestly,
Like a beverage container.
It could have been a jockstrap. I don't know. From the sound of it, I don't know.
Maybe.
So I was like, well, and then I was like, oh, you know what? It's probably the maid. The maid comes on Tuesdays. They're probably just really early today.
So far, I got to say, you're buying a house, you got a maid. Sounds like someone's living the high life.
Well, this was a very good year for me. And
blood and oil was taking off and before quickly plunging into
obscurity. No. This was actually like the last year of a show. There's no reason for me to buy a house the last year of my show. I was like, I may never work again. I'm going to commit to 30 years.
That's when you buy a house.
That's when you buy a house.
Why not?
Anyway, so I like, well, and I was like, you know what? It's got to be the maid. That's the only explanation. And I clearly wasn't worried enough to be like, maybe I should check, make sure it's the maid. And I was like, I'll go back to sleep. And so I went back to sleep, and I woke up around 9:30, right? And I get up, and there's no maid there. And I was like, God, they were fast. Jeez. I got up, and then the maid walks in the door.
Weird.
And they were like, hey, sorry, we're going to set up now and get going. And I was like, weren't you already here? And they're like, no, we just got here. And so I was like, well, what the fuck did I just hear?
Who was washing the jockstrap?
Who was washing the cup? Whatever cup means to you.
Did you find a cup that was clean?
No, God, I wish. That would have been amazing. The only thing that popped into my head that made sense. Am I too far away?
There you go. I was just adjusting it for you.
Am I too far away or too close?
I was
No, you're great.
audio.
I mean,
You were a little too. It was just tilted away from your mouth.
Got it. So I was like, the only thing that made sense, the only thing that I could think, I was like, and this I'm sort of a skeptic, didn't really make sense. But I was told when I bought the house
That
like,
gnomes lived there. This is my new thing, by the
No.
way. Gnomes.
Gnomes. No, it wasn't gnomes. Again, all great stuff, Michael, but it wasn't gnomes. This was.
There's no room for gnomes on Scott's new version of the show.
I'm trying to think of a title that has to do with gnomes, but anyway, the realtor told me the woman who owned the house died in it.
Died in that bathroom.
I don't know if it was in the bathroom.
Oh, died in the house.
Died in the house, and they have to disclose that to you.
Oh, wow.
They have to tell you that someone
Of what?
cancer. She died of cancer,
Oh,
and she
boy.
lived alone. And I remember thinking, I was like, I don't know why, but I had this feeling that was kind of like, because she had lived there the entire life of the house. The house was built in the 30s.
Wow.
She was born in the house.
Oh, dude, you bought a haunted house.
Yeah, and she lived there. Her parents left it to her. She lived there. She was a casting director in Los Angeles, and she lived there
She
from
must
like
be so excited.
from
you're
like
living there.
1970 till she died in 2010.
Who was this one?
I don't have her name. I don't remember her name.
Are you still
She's a
at
big
that same
casting
house?
director?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Hmm.
I'm still there.
Is
Yeah,
it a big casting
She
director?
was, I guess. I don't know. I remember they told me her name, and I was like, that sounds familiar, but I never read for her or anything.
It's not Mally Finn, was it?
No.
Okay,
No.
sorry.
No.
She was also a very big casting
I
director.
could
She
tell
got
you that
cancer.
we can come back and update this. I
Okay.
can find out the name and tell you.
Oh, let's please do.
Yes.
That's a strange thing, though.
But then I was like, I had this weird gut feeling. You know, this feeling is like it's totally out of nowhere, just washes over you for a minute, and you're like, well, that's a weird feeling. It's very specific, and I don't know why that happened. But it was like she recently died. You know, maybe 6 months before this, and she was still in the house, and I was hearing her just doing her routine. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think after that I never heard it again. I think she was kind of like, oh, the house is in good hands. I'm gonna go.
Wow,
Like,
maybe.
that was her. Like, I'm fine. I just had to stick around, see if
She's
this
like,
guy
that
wasn't a
one
jack-off."
cup was the thing that I left undone in this universe.
on
in
her
this life.
deathbed. She
Yeah.
was like, the cup.
"What, Grandma?"
And then in her, so she had to stick around and clean the cup. But that's the only thing that's happened to me that I was like, I bet you that in some weird way might have been her spirit or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Being like, I need to stick around and make sure this house is in good hands. Once I know that it is, I can go.
I
move
think
on.
that happens. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised because also right now you're renting out a section of your house that you're not, so you're in a separate part of the house.
That all that happened upstairs.
Yeah.
And I'm renting that out and I'm downstairs.
So I
Smart.
would not be surprised if eventually when you move back upstairs that every now and then something like that might happen, because it could be one of those things where we've talked about ghosts that are resident ghosts and ghosts that are visiting ghosts.
Right.
So like a resident ghost is someone who's just like hanging around,
Yep, and
can't
is
get
there.
stuck in a rut, can't get
Yeah.
out of there.
Right.
And then a was there a knock on the door?
That was my shoe.
Oh boy. Oh.
It's a great
That's a
knock
good
sound
trick.
effect
I don't
in
know
that
why
shoe.
I did that. I apologize.
Can we? I think
He has a
let's stop
faucet
by
sink on
Foley
his
Sound.
shoe
We need some- yeah.
too. Wait.
Yeah, wait a minute. And then there's the cup sound as well. But you might have a visitor. You might have someone who might drop by every now and then
Right.
just to check in on.
But see,
on
I haven't
things.
had anything. That was in 2010.
Okay.
I haven't had anything since.
Yeah.
Now, I've been downstairs for the last couple of years, and then in between there, I was gone for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But ever since that moment, nothing else has happened. That's why it felt like it was kind of like a, you know what? The house is in good hands. I'm gonna do this one last cup and then get out of here.
Yeah, I think too. The thing that I always say is trust your instincts on these kind of experiences. I think honestly, like your gut is often just as good of an informant as your brain is on this stuff. Like I trust that. I think that you go with that, and if that's what it felt like, then that's probably what it was.
Yeah. But that was cool because I don't really have a lot of those experiences. You know, people say that they'll see stuff, happen, or they'll hear stuff at night, or they'll have some weird experience. I never have any of those things. That was the only one that I was like, I'd kind of forgotten about it too.
Were you a kid that got scared easy?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That kind of surprises me.
Until I was 12. I don't know why. I had this thing where we lived in outside Chicago. And I was so worried about the crime rate. I was under 12 years old, and I was like, I remember asking my parents all the time, like, what's the crime rate at right now? And they're like, why are you worrying yourself about that? And because I actually lived in a bit of a secluded area outside Chicago. We had a couple acres. There was a big lake next to us. And a lot of times there was a road that had no streetlights on it that would just dump off into the lake. And cars and cyclists at night would be riding and just like crash into the lake. And we would get people soaking wet, covered in blood, come to our house. Like,
Oh my
can you call
God.
911?
Okay, so now I know where this started.
Yeah. So I was like, what is happening?
There's just a man with an axe at the end of your street.
Oh, I've had nightmares. And we had a 200-foot driveway. And if anybody came up the driveway, it was creepy.
Oh, I bet.
Because all you would see is this person walking forever towards your house. Just like, oh my God.
Covered in blood.
What do they want? Yeah, covered in blood. Or like, we had someone, this is tragic. We had two giant trees in our front yard at the end of the road. And where we lived in Michigan City, Indiana, the winters were freezing cold and black ice would go on the road, and it was dark out there. And this woman, this young 20s, woman, she was going on our road, probably 45 miles an hour, hit black ice and wrapped her car around our tree, spit her out the front windshield.
Oh, my God.
And died on impact.
Wow.
And my dad had to run out and like try and resuscitate her and be there until the ambulance came. And
So you literally had people like dying. In your front
dying
yard.
and bleeding and like, it was just, this
That's horrible.
Can I
nightmare
ask,
fuel.
Where was the
Yeah.
county in all of this? Why didn't they put in some lights? Why didn't they put up some road signs?
Because we lived in rural Indiana.
Wow.
I mean, it was just we had the county sheriff live across the street, but it was like across the street.
Right.
It was 4 acres
Street,
away.
yeah,
It's
a field.
It was a giant field. It was just,
Wow.
and that was the other thing too is, you live in LA, there's neighbors all over the place. There it was dark and you couldn't see the nearest house. It was like the Scream house, the movie Scream. You know how she's like in the middle of nowhere and no one's gonna come to your rescue. It was just like,
Yeah,
that's
that
fueled a lot of nightmares.
that
Wow.
sounds like a recipe for alien abduction to me.
Oh, absolutely.
I would living out in that rural area. I would always be when I go visit my cousins out in rural Missouri. I would always be scared of like alien abductions out there.
Because if it's
just
gonna happen, it's gonna happen there.
Right. I mean, that's how I always felt about it. And I was scared enough growing up. We were in a subdivision, but it was when we first moved there. It was south of Kansas City by about 20 minutes. Now it's all overly developed, but it was considered the sticks back then.
Right.
And we had woods next to me, and then a field next to the woods, because there was like a little airport across the highway from where I was. And I always thought, like, that's the perfect touchdown point for any aliens that even have they even have like the airport like runway to help guide. You know, this is
You're
my
like, it's
kid
all
brain.
here.
It's all
They
here.
have everything
can
they
land.
need.
Everything they need to land is right in my backyard.
A lot of crops.
Yeah.
A lot of crops.
In the area.
Working with some
make
crops.
some circles.
Make some circles.
And then some woods to hide themselves in before they come up to my window.
Yep, exactly.
And scare me.
Yeah.
So you said you were into UFOs.
Oh, I mean that's been my big. I think because I'm a bit of a skeptic with a lot of other things, that's the one thing my brain could wrap around and be like, well, I mean, I don't think it's impossible and outside the realm of possibility that there's other life out there. I think that's completely possible. Is there an afterlife or a limbo that ghosts are trapped here? After I don't know. I couldn't say. There's nothing that I could say, could help me believe that with physical evidence, right? Go ahead.
Except
Go ahead.
the running water in a cup being
But
washed.
that's what I mean. That was the one thing that I was like,
Right.
okay, I don't usually think that. So that's why when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's
weird.
weird.
That bumps.
Yeah.
a little bit.
That I can't explain that.
No, I think you'll find that in common with the people who seem to be somewhat skeptical of the paranormal. It's like, I mean, gosh, we're discovering new planets that are in the quote unquote Goldilocks zone, the habitable zone all the time, and the numbers are staggering. I mean, so yeah, it's like I feel that like you're not alone in that class of people who are like, I believe, that the numbers could make sense for there being something else out there,
right. And who knows what they know? Like that's the other thing is if there is an advanced civilization that could visit Earth, who knows what they know and are capable of? I mean, look at us 200 years ago. Like if someone practiced medicine 200 years ago, they would call them a witch.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So the idea that there's some advanced technology or something out there that is so foreign to us that we think it's,
sure.
Oh, if
magic.
if we went back in time 500 years, they would think we were aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
And it makes me think that perhaps aliens are us from the future coming back in time to visit.
Thing.
Because I think this all the time. Is I hear, like Bryce was saying, that a lot of people go, "Yeah, I think there are aliens out there. Makes sense, but I don't think they visited here because it's just too much to travel.
The distance is
too
vast.
great." But I go,
Wormhole?
yeah, and I'm like, well, sure, based on what our space travel and what we know it would take, but give a civilization even 1,000 years head start, but more likely 1 million to 2 million head start on us.
Yeah.
Imagine a species that's as advanced of us as we are, further along than we are from the dinosaurs, right?
Oh God.
They could fucking figure out all this shit that we don't even know about.
Right.
It's
the possibilities are endless.
Yeah,
That's
by
the
that
thing.
point, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
think interstellar travel is they've conquered that. It's like us figuring out how to get to the moon, like times a million.
I mean, look at what we did in a century. I mean, you telling me that
From
another
horse carriage to
civilization-
walking on the moon in 69 years.
69 years.
Staggering.
So the
very
idea that
sexy 69.
That's right.
69.
69. Yeah.
Anyway, yes, aliens are my thing. My favorite is, and I don't want to butcher this story because I don't know the exact names of all the details, but I remember seeing sort of like a documentary about an American Air Force pilot or whatever stationed in England. I don't know if you guys have heard this story.
Is this the Rendlesham Forest?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you heard that?
Yeah. Go on.
So that's
Tell
the
the story.
one that, well, I mean, okay, so basically these guys go out to investigate something that happens in the forest, and they go out and they, to their account, find this craft that is, either hovering low above the ground in the forest and has this sort of translucent material type thing, and this guy goes and touches it, and all of a sudden he gets binary code flooded through his head, right?
It had hieroglyphics on the
right?
craft.
They had been
Exactly.
chasing lights. They'd been seeing lights, orbs, and lights moving around, red lights and bright blue and white lights moving around the forest, which is what drew them out there.
And so when he touches this thing, he gets this binary in his head, and he has dreams about it for weeks and months. And finally, after a while, he decides to see if he can just write it down and see what happens. And he does, and he writes it all down. And then there's like this mostly undecipherable, but there's the small message in there. It was like, It was like, observe governmental action or something like that. It was so specific.
If I remember correctly, it
Yeah.
was a message from the human species from the future. So it almost interrelayed, like that the beings, the owners of the craft, were actually us from the future.
And that's what you were just talking about.
Which is a whole other.
I hadn't heard that for Rendlesham.
Well, what you're talking about, the Rendlesham Forest case, which is one of the most substantiated cases with just a plethora of different evidences, and this was just right over a military base too. So you have reports of military officers and going out and the radios, the guy actually seeing it coming in over the radio, describing what he sees. I've been meaning to do that story because it's one of my favorite, and the implications of it are that and this is what we'll talk a lot about on the show, that it's not the extraterrestrial hypothesis. This isn't some alien civilization coming from Zeta Reticuli, nor is it what I like, the interdimensional theory, which is these things are popping in and out of dimensions. But this is another theory altogether, that this was us from the future coming back to give us a message about nuclear proliferation.
Something,
Fascinating.
Warnings.
Yeah, warnings, which is very common in alien abduction phenomena and sort of conscious awareness raising UFO sightings. They get a lot of that.
Yeah, is the idea there? I mean, I know it's I could be asking this to the wind, but is the idea there?
You're asking this to the Bigfoot Collectors Club, motherfucker.
We got your back.
I'm just saying, I don't know if anyone in the room has an answer. Is this the idea that if they go back in time to give a warning to people, that the timeline will change? I mean, like.
I don't know. I'll have to look. It's a great question.
Because then they couldn't send the message. I mean, all that whole paradoxical time travel.
It could be that they're from an alternate timeline and they're trying to save other timelines that have gone astray.
Gosh,
totally.
We've got movie material ready.
Or that
guys.
they are like, that was such a close call that we've got to help ensure that we stay. It's sort of like, all right, we've built a country road, and then we have to pave over that road. It's sort of like, in other words, I'm saying like they have to repair infrastructure. Perhaps, you know what I mean? So if you look at the timeline as infrastructure that we've laid down, and they're like, okay, there are a couple potholes where this whole timeline could collapse if we don't go back and patch it over, build some guardrails, reinforce it, double that, widen that lane a little bit. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
No,
but maybe it's a sort of a thing where there are guys that are like, okay, we got to go back and make sure that this timeline stays intact, so this shit does not happen.
Okay. Without getting too political, let's just use a scenario right now.
Yeah, fuck it. You know what? We try not to get political on this podcast, but sometimes we are just. I was thinking about this week.
Okay, well, I'll make this.
Yeah. And no, but I was just gonna say, go ahead. I don't care, because sometimes it's hard to have this conversation without being like
absolutely. I'm trying to look up
terrified by the idea of Trump being in charge of the nuclear button right
and
now.
that's
totally.
And that's
I mean, fuck it. I mean, guys, it's the way it is.
So let me pose the question without actually picking a side. All right, let's just say you don't like what's happened, and it's a danger to to humanity the last 100 years, right? Because of fossil fuels affecting the climate or politics that have made nuclear war a possibility.
Yeah.
Let's just say you don't like any of that, right? What is the idea that we now could be like, let's go back and back in 1910 when it was like, we've got the combustion engine and the electric car, right? We have them both here. And then the oil companies push for the combustion engine because they wanted to sell their product. Let's go back and fucking change that.
Yeah.
Right? 100 years before we have Tesla now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's change that. Or let's go back and let's not use the nuke over Hiroshima and Nagasaki to try and end World War II. Let's not even bring that into the fold so that we don't have 30, 40 years of Cold War.
Well, my feeling is that probably there would be some, if time travel were a thing,
right.
There are probably in the future huge ethical discussions about going back and changing that shit because of the chaos theory. You could make it worse. You could speed it up. You could prevent it so none of us are born. So I think that probably what they're doing is, and I'm just obviously rolling with this.
No, I think you've got a doctorate in this.
I've got to figure it out. Yeah, I do. I think it's more about like, okay, the bowling ball is moving.
Right.
And we got to get it into, we got to make it hit all the pins.
Right.
So we're stepping in and just making sure that bowling
nudge
ball,
it in the right direction.
Or it's like the guys like, what's that really lame? Curling. They're guys with brushes. Okay, sorry. They're guys with brushes that are out in front of it, just making sure that it hits the goal. and that they realize that, like, oh, by the time they get there, like, oh, part of what helped us get here and not annihilate ourselves is we were there the whole time helping. So that's our we have to go fulfill that duty.
And that's all these sightings we have. That's all these strange paranormal incidences.
I don't think it's
with
all of them.
Well, but some.
But a lot of them.
Yeah, sure.
But I think because I think that, like Bryce says, Bryce gave 3 examples. He said aliens from Zeta Reticuli, or interdimensional aliens, or us from the future. I see no reason why it can't be all of those possibilities.
Sure.
So a little column A, a little column B, a little column C.
And I will say this, and this goes back to my almost original point, which was what makes the most sense in my mind, right? And I've had this conversation with family and friends about, like, I have friends who are very religious, and they're like, well, I believe that God created us, and I said this almost half joking, but now I get called a crackpot now for saying this. But I was like, well, I mean,
welcome to the club.
I was like, I almost think that aliens coming down and, like, shooting up an ape back 200,000 years ago with some DNA so that it would have its brain expand and become civilization is less, in my opinion, less impractical than God going, let's put Adam and Eve in a garden and make them bang.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
right,
absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
Agreed.
to me, I'm like, that's just, in my opinion, my brain can't grasp onto that as reality as much as it can.
Yeah,
aliens
and that's
coming down
another
shooting us up with-
theory. That's the alien intervention theory,
Right,
that
right.
a higher civilized species came aboard. They took our best hominids walking on the ground, and they said, let's plug some DNA molecular structure into them and, like, basically boost their evolution.
Right, exactly.
Give them an evolutionary booster shot.
Yeah,
Yep,
absolutely.
exactly.
Well, and I also like the cosmic panspermia,
Directed
which is
panspermia,
like
yeah.
that. Okay, DNA is older than we are.
Yep.
Human DNA, and that these genetic codes were sent here on the tail of a comet.
Yep.
And basically impregnated the
Which
Earth.
science tells us is plausible.
And that all the answers are in that genetic code. And to help us understand the genetic code, we have the plants, the psilocybins and the ayahuascas that help us unlock the history of that DNA and cosmic history.
Yep.
And that, like, we think, well, why wouldn't it be in a book, or why wouldn't it be in stone tablets, or why? Well, because this shit outlasts all that stuff.
Right.
Can outlast it.
It predated us. Us writing with tools and drawing in caves.
Right. And that if a species is going to evolve, they'll unlock it themselves and figure all that stuff out.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked on last week's episode about how Francis Crick discovered DNA and discovered the double helix while he was tripping on LSD and being guided by a higher voice telling him where to look to find it.
Steve Jobs, LSD.
Yeah.
His whole vision for the computer world.
There seems to be an intelligent, some sort of intelligence behind, when these people go into altered states of consciousness, whether it's, even through abduction, they seem to come back with some type of message that sort of transcends what they would know otherwise. You know what I mean? So there's something definitely mysterious at play that offers some strange insights into what these things could be. Who knows?
And I will just say I have done psilocybin before, and the first time I did, I took a lot. And I just too much. I just took too much. But it's
Rookie move.
And that's the only time I've ever had, like, crazy hallucinations.
Yeah.
But they felt so insanely
Made sense.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, I'm tripping balls. It was like, oh, it's almost like I'm seeing stuff for the first, like, my eyes are open for the first time in a lot of ways, but, like, my brain can perceive things the way it's supposed to be perceived. I was with some friends out in the desert, and I remember seeing. We all afterwards talked about how we saw hieroglyphs on rocks, and we saw the same kind of hieroglyphs on rocks, and we didn't talk about it. We made a rule that we weren't going to talk about what we saw while we were high. It was after we.
We're not going to talk about it while we're kissing one another.
How could we?
I mean, you're kissing.
Our mouths are busy.
They're already occupied.
But it was just crazy to be like, wow, we all kind of saw it. We all had a very similar experience in seeing what was impossible to see without. That substance.
It's like putting on the like X-ray glasses or like, I don't know.
No, that's right.
I'm so on board with all that stuff,
Me
and
too.
I think it should all be treated respectfully and responsibly.
Yeah.
Because you can't go in like an idiot. You can't go running in there like an idiot.
Can't take too much the first time.
Yeah. But I mean, I had like when I was in Amsterdam, I took way too much in college. And
Psilocybin?
in the first like I'd say hour was a little rocky,
Yeah.
but it was almost like I'd psyched myself up because I'd done it once before, but I was kind of like, I remember I had like a Lonely Planet guide that was like, and then
To psilocybin.
well, they talk about doing shrooms in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and they were like, you know, because it's legal there, and they were
Right.
like, okay, just remember, if you're having a bad trip, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. Don't go to the hospital. They're
Yeah.
not going to be able to help you. You just got to ride it
gotta
out.
ride it out.
And it was so funny that I was getting this advice from like a Lonely Planet guide that when I was almost like set myself up for it.
Yeah.
And I remember we all went to this cafe, and I was with two friends that had never done it before, and neither one of them were like, you know, pot smokers or anything. And I remember we were all sitting down, and they'd gone to the Anne Frank Museum, and I went to a head shop to buy shrooms. And I
Very
remember
different days,
yeah, I
very
know.
different
I
days.
feel sort of ashamed about that, but I was like, we're getting this done. So I remember asking the woman, I was like, okay, I want something that's like nice and easy. It's not super visual. It's not going to like wig us out. And she's like, okay, take this. And I remember she pointed to something on the menu that was called Hippie Trippy. And I there was like
That
already
sounds-
red flag. I was like, yeah, okay. All right, sure. And then we went to this cafe to do it, and I remember I was so protective of my friends that I'd be like, and in retrospect, it would probably look like I was being greedy, but I was like, okay, 1 for you, 2 for me, 1 for you, 2, because I was like, I'll take the more heroic dose because I'm worried about them freaking out because they were very nervous about it.
Right.
And of course, they had a blast. And for the first
And you
hour,
were-
I was like, "Oh fuck! Oh fuck! Oh god! I'm gonna be trapped in a prism.
You got the
I'm
fear.
too far away. Yeah, I got
The
really,
darkness. The darkness. Is
I got
bad.
really freaked out. And I remember like we were in this like hostel where I remember looking at. They had clearly specifically decorated it for this occasion.
Sure.
Like they had like Van Gogh weeds that were growing out of pats and like track lighting and like stuff that was like, so everything was coming to life in the room. Like this wall is mustard yellow, but this one's exposed brick. So these things are swirling and dancing.
Ugh.
And I remember being like, oh God, everything here looks like a fucking Grateful Dead poster, and I fucking hate the Grateful Dead. You know what I mean? I was like, hippie trippy, fuck you. And I remember I was like, and I didn't want to tell them that I was freaking out. And I was like trying to listen to music, but it was like echoing too loudly. And I remember I just go outside and I sat down on the sidewalk. And I remember like a breeze going by and like bicyclists walking by. And I just had this image of like, oh, I'm seeing the world through the eyes of a friendly dog. You know what I mean? And it kind of
like you were a dog.
yeah,
just,
like I was a
experiencing the
dog,
world.
just like sitting out on the sidewalk watching humans go by.
Wow.
And I remember it suddenly calmed me down and centered me.
You know what it is? It's nature.
Yeah,
that's
it's
exactly right.
No shit. And I looked up, and I swear to God, I literally saw, because it was a little overcast, I literally saw the clouds part and the sun beaming down on me. And I stood up and I went, this is the best day ever. And I ran inside. I was like, guys, you got to come outside. It's amazing. And they were kind of like, what's going on? And then we just like went outside, and we just like ended up having like the greatest
And I
time.
love that everyone that walked by you when you said that was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
We're used to this.
Yeah.
This is Amsterdam, for God's
Fucking
sake.
Pseucophaking kid.
Trying psilocybin for the first time.
But it was amazing. But I remember there were periods of that in there, even when it was a little rough.
Yeah.
Where I was
It's like
oh,
this.
it definitely like it was a mind altering experience the way that like I did see sort of behind the veil on some of that stuff. And I
That's
was
my
like,
favorite part of it
ooh.
is feeling like you're tapping into something that's always there and around. Like, you know, it's like we all operate on one frequency. And if we just changed our frequency, we might see a
that's right.
completely different world. That stuff blows my mind. And, you know, I don't know if it's real or not, but the idea of it, and when you take psilocybin, all it does is make you go like, that might be the case.
Yeah.
That might be the case.
No, there's some great data there to be looked at for sure. One of our favorite guys we love to talk about is Terrence McKenna, and you used the words heroic dose. He would say that. He said, you know, you don't need to go to outer space to look for higher intelligences. All you need is some courage and 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's
It is
a
a-
lot.
Don't take 5 grams.
Don't
Please
do
don't
it.
take 5
Don't do that.
But that's what he called the heroic dose. You know?
Jesus.
What's great about
I think I probably took, because we got 3.5 grams, and I think I took half of that, and it was A ton.
What was so great about him
Idiot.
is he would always bring back with him is what he learned and what he took from that behind that veil. So instead of just being in that experience and losing yourself, he was
document.
He was there to bring information back.
Yeah.
And he did that with aplomb. He was great.
That's so funny. I just heard someone on NPR talking
Armed
about how they
only
did
with
this.
a plum.
He was like, I literally went out and I was going under supervised, like dosing, where someone was like, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to give you a dose. If you feel like it's too much, fine. If you don't, I'll give you more, and we'll just kind of track what you see and feel.
Right.
And he wrote a book about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
I
crazy.
can't remember the name of the guy. I'll have to look it up. But he was talking to Terry Gross on Fresh Air.
Was this like he was doing microdosing?
No,
or was...
he was doing a lot, and he was going,
wow.
and he was like, and I'd never done it. He was just a writer who just wanted to do it because he'd never done it before, and he was like, he took one, and he was talking about how he freaked out, but then he was like, I'm doing this for the book, so I'm going to take more.
Yeah.
Take more, and
totally.
be like, oh my god, and like would just write his experiences. It was very fascinating, but microdosing is another thing.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing on its own. Yeah, people like in high stress jobs taking micro doses
Or
of
creative
LSD.
jobs.
Yeah, or creative jobs taking very small doses,
Daily
of,
doses.
It sounds
of
very
LSD
therapeutic.
or, yeah, well, it increases attention span, increases your visual acuity. So there's benefits to be had there.
I think it lowers a little bit of artistic inhibition too.
Wouldn't it
While
be great
you're
if
on
we
it.
found out that like Trump, they were just slowly microdosing Trump every day to calm him down?
It's not showing.
It's not working.
not working.
Up the
dose.
doses. Wouldn't it be amazing if we just Trump. President Trump. It was like he was on like a heroic dose of psilocybin.
Oh man, there's a movie from the '60s called Wild in the Streets, and it's about Congress getting dosed with LSD by these renegades.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
my god!
It is an awesome movie.
All right.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's
That might hit the next.
You know
movie
what?
night.
There's
Wild in
a
the Streets,
film
it's
that
good.
also I want to watch. I think it's like a Dutch film, maybe. I don't remember. I apologize. It's called Blueberry, and it's about guys hiking and then doing ayahuasca in the woods and so in the forest in Amazon. And supposedly, like the sequence in Blueberry is just like supposed to be like what an ayahuasca trip is really like. You
Oh,
know,
man.
so I don't know.
You know, with that I've never done it, but you've watched that documentary DMT, the Spirit Molecule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one is, I think, the most, if any, descriptions I've heard.
Rick
is the most
Strassman's
vivid.
work in his book. You should
Great
check
book.
that out.
Yeah.
For sure.
He was a doctor out of Arizona, and it was the only government-funded psychedelic test since after the '60s. And he took a controlled group of people, and he used injected rat DMT, and what he
Rat DMT.
yeah, that's right. They
'Cause
extracted it.
it's in everything.
Well,
right?
it's in the pineal gland of our brain, so
Right.
we all self-produce our own levels,
and
of
we get a little
DMT.
drip of it every night when we go to sleep.
Some more
Yeah,
than
that's
others,
right.
I
They say
think,
that-
and that's why that explains a lot of experiences.
They say
too.
that's what induces the dream world, and they say that it actually excretes at maximum levels on birth and at death.
And death, yes.
But what he found, what kind of blew his mind, was that all his patients at the correct dosage, I think it was something like 4 milligrams or something, they all described the same
things. Whether you see a spirit or an alien, it was like you see some sort of form.
they saw a lot of snakes and jaguars and
those jungle gods and like the like woman. There's like a plant goddess.
There's
people
definitely
see.
like a goddess element, a higher intelligence kind of goddess element, and even alien. There's some alien beings in there as well.
It's so funny because we consider all this stuff so counterculture, you know. And I remember a few years ago, I was in New York for work, and I went to the Natural History Museum, and I was just like upstairs in one of the side rooms, and I was like in an exhibition that's like permanent part of the museum where they're just talking about like plants, and they have like, plaster versions of different plants from all around the world. And I looked down and there was like an ayahuasca vine. And it's just like, here I am in the Natural History Museum in New York. And if you read, and I was like reading, I was like, oh shit, they got like stuff about ayahuasca in here. And they were talking about shamans and brewing it and drinking it. And then they were talking about people who have been on this, have experienced traveling to other dimensions, speaking to like tall bird-like creatures.
I'm surprised
and
they have that.
I
in
was
there.
like, this is fucking awesome. Like, it's right here. Like,
Right.
we have this knowledge. This is in the museum in New York.
and it's still considered taboo. That's what's amazing.
And
it's still
it's just
taboo.
it's like, look at this, and it's a paragraph or a couple paragraphs that are probably people are like, plants, boring, overlooking it. Because how often are you in a gallery or in a museum and actually reading
I
the
go for the
text?
plants. I go for the plants.
I go there for the text. Yeah, I read the articles. I go to the museum for the
just
articles.
for the articles.
But I was like, fuck, this is an awesome trip. There's awesome tripping stories in here that I was like, well, shit. If I were a kid on a field trip, I'd be like,
I want to get some
get a hold of some of
ayahuasca
that.
root.
Hit the gift shop.
Yeah,
no
right.
shit.
So it's just so funny because this, it really is, and I really think that this is a product of the past 100 years of sort of clamping, sort of trying to brush all this shit under the carpet, so pharmaceutical companies and governments could be like, don't look over there. We have everything that you need. And I'm saying medicine is good,
which blows
but
my mind. But because why wouldn't pharmaceutical companies? Why wouldn't they want to take that and use it? You know what I mean? Because they're in the business of taking plants and things and making stuff and making them into drugs.
Well,
why wouldn't they want to do that?
Well, I think maybe we might be slowly seeing the transformation of that with the legalization of
marijuana.
Yeah, and I don't think marijuana should be a Schedule I drug at all.
It's ridiculous.
I do think that there are drugs that are fucking super dangerous and will kill you, and marijuana is not one of them.
No.
So I think that we're seeing what big business it can do, what it can do for the economy,
The taxes that you get on
all
it
this
alone.
shit.
I know.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe we are, maybe we're not. I think it's just because there's a lot of old white men in power who want their drugs to be sold over something that might actually benefit people and cure them. Because pharmaceutical companies are in the business of treating people, not curing people
them.
now.
Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. Hopefully we'll have progress in that. I'm sure there are people in that field who do believe in it and do believe that these plants have healing powers. But it's just, I think whatever it is, so many things in Western culture, we've just got, there's so much cool stuff, and there's so much stuff that we've just gotten way out of balance on.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I've got a story for you. I think
wanna
that
hear
you're
it.
going to love.
All
on
right,
High
well, let's
Strangeness.
take
this
a
one's
break.
going to be right up your alley.
Great. We're going to take a break, and we're all going to brew some ayahuasca tea. And then when we come back, we're
going to be enlightened.
It's time for some real high strangeness.
No doubt.
Cool.
Welcome back to Bigfoot Collectors Club. And before we get into high strangeness, we have a correction from our producer, Riley Bray. What do you got?
Which is odd because we never make mistakes.
We never make
This is a
mistakes.
very well researched
We never
show.
use the wrong words when we're rambling. We never generalize about science.
That's right.
But
We never call Arkansas Alabama when it should have been called Arkansas, which I did all throughout the Bigfoot Movie Club episode on the Patreon. Go on.
This was actually pointed out to me by a listener. But we've touched on the DNA discovery origin story a few times now. We just did in the last segment, which made me think about it. And it's generally attributed to James Watson and Francis Crick, which is, I mean, but they actually based most of their work on the work of their colleague Rosalind Franklin, who was an X-ray diffraction expert.
That's right.
And she's actually the first one that photographed the helix structure of DNA in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
And then their work was based on her, but she never gets brought up in all
Wow.
this. There is a Rosalind Franklin University, I think in Chicago, maybe? I don't know about that part. But
Wow.
but she's often unsung in the story, and that was pointed out to me by a listener because we keep saying Francis Crick. She's
Sweet.
Actually,
That's
it was
so
really
great.
Rosalind Franklin who really did that work first.
And she was just super baked, not even doing psilocybin. So there's that too. Well, that's cool. That's
Yeah, no,
really
that's
good to know.
awesome.
I mean, obviously, it's a shame that women get sort of written out of a lot of this history.
Well,
so,
she's back in.
That's what I wanted to bring it
we're
up.
feminists here.
Yeah,
Hey, man,
you know?
that's great. I love it. Look, we talk. We go do your own research. I mean, on the stories of high strangeness, we're researching them as well as we can. But oftentimes we
We're
are
shooting
talking
from the
off
hip
our.
here.
We're shooting from the hip and just talking off our memories, which are rapidly decreasing
For
as
sure.
I age, at least. So that's awesome to know. Well, I'll have to look her up. And you know what? What we should do is it's deserving of its own sort of story in itself. So maybe it's time that we research some of that stuff and maybe cover the actual stuff
you
that
go.
we're talking about.
Nah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, let's just keep moving
I'm
along.
more into the
we're good.
ghosts. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that
No,
up.
thank you for doing that.
And thank you for the correction,
Yeah.
anonymous listener.
Appreciate it. Don't ever do it again.
All right, so it's time for high strangeness. Bryce, what did you bring in for the class
All right.
today?
Scott, you're going to like this one because
wait.
this is the story of the Phoenix Lights.
Oh yes.
I'll start mine with a quote, too. The Phoenix Lights is a compelling and thoroughly documented account of the most bizarre and widely observed UFO event in modern times. And that was from Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth person to walk on the moon. So he's somebody you might want to listen to. So let's get into it, right? On the evening of March 13th, 1997, a mile-wide V-shaped formation of strange lights silently glided over the state of Arizona. They were witnessed by commercial airline pilots, air traffic controllers, military personnel, and thousands of other citizens. The mass UFO sighting has become known worldwide as the Phoenix Lights and is viewed as one of the most witnessed and most important anomalous events in modern UFO history. Not only was there a parade of silent mile-wide V formations of orbs and what could be up to 9 different crafts, witnessed by over 10,000 people at low altitude through Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada, but similar events would take place before and after that date, not only here in America, but in countries like Mexico, Belgium, and Russia, to name a few. Thank you. The report started coming in around 6 p.m. Mysterious glowing objects seen above Phoenix. Silent delta wing object flying low over houses. Huge aircraft bigger than a shopping mall. Over the next few hours, residents throughout the city and the surrounding area witnessed a mammoth-sized V-shaped craft that blocked out the stars as it sailed quietly by. On its underside were 5 spherical lights or engines that gave off an eerie orangish glow. Despite being viewed by an estimated 10,000 eyewitnesses, many of whom saw it at close range, the phenomenon has been dismissed by the Air Force with an explanation that fails to take into account both the time of the event and the vast swaths of land over which the sightings took place. To this day, no one has identified precisely what was in the sky, and authorities seem to show no interest in discovering or, more accurately, revealing the truth of what they know. Shortly before 7 p.m., a man in Henderson, Nevada, 300 miles north of Phoenix, reported seeing a V-shaped aircraft with 6 lights on its leading edge flying above the desert. He said it was the size of a 747 and made a sound like rushing wind. A little more than an hour later, at 8:15, a former policeman and his family watched as a group of glowing dots moved in V formation above Pauline, Arizona, 200 miles southeast of Henderson. Over the next few hours, pilots, air traffic controllers, military professionals, police officers, and ordinary civilians along the path from Pauline to Phoenix observed the UFOs as they headed towards Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. Now, astronomy is one reason why so many people were staring up at the sky that night, because a lot of Arizonians were hoping to catch a glimpse of the passing comet Hale-Bopp, which was flying by Earth for an April 1st rendezvous with the sun. In the weeks after the strange encounter, more than 700 people called local authorities and the National UFO Reporting Center to tell what they saw. Their descriptions had several things in common. The aircraft had a V or delta shape like a boomerang and was flying as low as 500 feet. One witness claiming that as it flew over their house, it was so low they could have hit it with a rock. It was solid and blocked out the stars from view. Most astonishing was its size, as long as a mile, maybe more, according to some observers. A family driving on an area highway said that when it passed overhead, the 2 wingtips could be seen through the windows on opposite sides of the car. Not only that, they were doing 80 miles per hour in the opposite direction of the craft, and it still took several minutes for this thing to pass overhead. Think about that.
Was that a mother-daughter?
Yeah, it was a family. Mother, yeah. It was a solid craft.
Come back to that later.
Sure. Silent and very low to the ground, Mike Fortson reported. And the thing that took me was the size. Profoundly massive. We don't even have shopping centers this big. Significantly.
I love that that's the gauge.
I know.
I ain't seen a strip mall this big.
No, this was big. Significantly, the objects were viewed from multiple vantage points as they flew through the valley. The advanced nature of these phenomena is also noteworthy. Some saw 3 glowing orbs, while others viewed 5, 6, or more, with 1 or more lights appearing to blink out from time to time. The objects felt unearthly and interdimensional, because when they slowly and mechanically disappeared from view, they still seemed to be there. They could glide at a very low altitude, hover, and then take off at a blink of speed, or split into 2. The lights seemed to be attached to something or had a force field holding them in a solid formation. Some witnesses saw the orbs detach from the main object, go out into the environment, and then redock with it. Incredible technology, to be sure. Despite the object's unfathomable size,
That was Scott sighing in fun disbelief.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, not out of dismissal.
It went undetected by radar. And as in any phenomenon seen by thousands of people, descriptions varied. Among the witnesses are several who say they identified 5 Air Force fighter planes, possibly F-22s, flying in a tight V formation. Yet the Air Force has denied having any planes flying in such a formation that night, and no one has come forth to counter their claim. Fife Symington, the governor of Arizona at the time, saw the lights as well, though he didn't reveal that until years later. In the days after the encounter, he said his office was calling the heads of the National Guard and Luke Air Force Base to find out if they were flying some exotic aircraft over the valley and not really getting any answers. But no one stopped to asking questions, and the news refused to go away. On June 18th, USA Today carried the story on its front page, bringing the Phoenix lights to national attention. Eventually, at the request of Phoenix councilwoman Frances Barwood, who plays an integral part. We'll get more on her later. Arizona Senator John McCain promised to look into the matter in the fall of 1997. He received a letter informing him that members of the Maryland National Guard had been on a training exercise with the Arizona National Guard, dropping high-intensity magnesium parachute flares at an altitude of 15,000 feet, high enough to be seen 150 miles away. But that explanation doesn't hold up. McCain was told the exercise was conducted between 9:30 and 10 p.m., but the lights were seen as early as 6 p.m. and continued till almost midnight and even the day beyond. Not only that, the flare drop was conducted southwest of the path along where the mystery craft was spotted. In addition, the flares descended in a linear formation rather than a V shape. Some Phoenix residents believe that the military and some top-level government officials became aware of the strange aircraft and hurriedly organized the flare drop as a subterfuge, a tactical diversion. And indeed, a recording of a phone call from nearby Luke Air Force Base to the National UFO Reporting Center, Newfork, supports that theory. In the early hours of March 14th, an airman at Luke Air Force Base phoned Newfork with an alarming story. Prescott Valley Airport, a small municipal facility north of Phoenix, had called the base at 8:32 p.m. after a small Cessna airplane experienced a near miss with a large unidentified aircraft. Luke Air Force Base immediately scrambled a pair of F-15s to investigate. When they returned, one of the fighter jet pilots said he'd seen 5 lights in a V configuration and even got gun camera film of it. The airman who called Newfork said the pilot was scared to death. He's not sure what it was, but it scared the hell out of him, he continued. And after the fighters landed, we had a complete lockdown of the base. Again, the Air Force denies the encounter ever took place. Since that incredible event that occurred in the clear, dark skies over Phoenix and nearby cities, residents have reported other unidentifiable lights in the sky. Among the witnesses, Dr. Lynn Katai, who has photographed her sightings and explored the subject in depth in a documentary based on her book, The Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone. Once uncertain about UFOs and alien visitations, Katai has sifted through the immense data to become convinced something is out there. Her advice? Keep looking up, because we are not alone.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well told.
Thank you.
Well
yeah.
told.
So that is the story of Phoenix Lights. And you know what I love about doing this show and is in researching these stories, I thought I had already was pretty well versed on the Phoenix Lights,
Yeah.
but I had no idea, and I use the term parade, that there was up to what they think 9 different V-shaped crafts, each some
9?
very 9, not just one flying V,
Wow.
but almost 9 different craft. I brought you some pictures here too.
I was just looking them up on my phone too.
I remember seeing a special on this, probably one of
Here,
the
pass
UFO
those around.
shows. Oh yeah, I've seen some of these. These are really, really cool. That's what. Yeah. Okay. And I remember that they interviewed a mother and daughter who were like a teenage daughter and a mother. The
Yeah,
daughter
they
was
called
in her,
Art Bell on Coast to Coast.
Yeah, I think they called Art Bell, and I think at one point did they call him while it was happening?
Art Bell was getting calls pretty much that same night
re-
and the next day and the next week.
So I remember. So it must have been with Art Bell or when they had called the police and they said we're seeing this object flying over our car, and the cops were like, okay, well, how big is it? And they're like, big. And he's like, okay, well, if you hold up your thumb, can you cover it up with your thumb?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're like, no. And they're like, okay, so if you hold up your hand, can you cover it with the flat of your hand? And they're like, no. This thing is taking up almost our entire view of the sky.
Yeah, one witness claimed she could hold a newspaper.
That's what I think this
she
was
could
the
hold
woman.
a newspaper out, and you would still see the craft.
That's what she said. She said, I held I could hold a newspaper, and I think this was maybe the same woman. And what was the governor's name?
Fife Symington.
Fife Symington, and he said that he saw it later.
Didn't he recanted his story?
Yeah. So what
this is very interesting. This is where it gets into some kind of a little bit of cover-up story because they were getting a lot of heat about this, and they wanted an investigation. Now, Fife Symington, about a month after the USA Today story came out, Fife Symington basically said we were going to hold an emergency press conference. Now, he just happened to be in court at the time on some trumped-up federal charges. Now, according to Frances Barwood, who was the vice mayor, she said
of Phoenix.
Of Phoenix, that's right. She said she's the one that received this, called back 700 of these witnesses and went over every single one, all telling the same thing. She said Fife Symington, after hearing that he was going to hold a national press conference, they took him back into the judge's chamber. He was met where he came out, and then basically he did that infamous press conference where he brought out his chief of staff in an alien costume.
Right.
And now, according to Francis, as a joke, which basically
he's like, we caught the culprit, and then they
caught
brought
the culprit,
out,
and now Francis
and people
says,
were pissed.
Yeah, because
people had actually who had seen this shit had come out and be like, thank God the governor's going to say something.
Well, now
and he made a joke out of it.
That's right. Now you're talking thousands of witnesses. Families were watching that press conference with their children, hoping to get something. There was one witness who, with her family, she said her boys laid on their back on the front lawn as this thing silently glided over their house. So that doesn't sound like flares. So yeah, when he came out there and his chief of staff was in that alien costume, you could even see it when you watch the video. He seems a little perturbed or under duress, but a lot of people took that to heart, and they were very, very disappointed wouldn't be the word.
They were pissed.
They were pissed.
Well, what's the idea of him going back in the judge's chambers? Like, what's the theory?
Well, they say they made a deal. You know, listen, you need to come out.
If you go out there and make fun of this and say it was nothing, we'll drop these.
We'll drop the charge.
Now, who said this? The judges in the case?
No, he was visited by some government officials.
Okay. So people from the federal government came.
Yeah, that's right, and the charges were dropped. Now, here's a little something about Fife Symington, just to let you know. You know, he was an Air Force guy himself. He was a pilot and an accredited officer.
Yeah.
Now, years later, he came out and said, you know, listen, I saw this thing with my own two eyes.
He was supposedly at like a garden party or like at a party, and I think he said, now I could be wrong. This is me going from my memory. I remember an interview, but from what I recall, he was like outdoors on a deck at a party. And he said he watched it in the distance with friends and neighbors and colleagues as one of these ships, if not the mothership, flew over the horizon. Yeah. So he fucking saw it too, and he regretted making that joke. And because it let down his people, because everyone was going, "What the fuck is this thing?"
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Thank God we're actually going to have one of our leaders talk about it."
That just goes to show the kind of, I mean, I can't imagine being in a position of power, like a governor, having to address something like that. And especially, I mean, listen, there's a lot of hairy stuff going on with being in court at the same time, and having leverage. But can you imagine having, like, you know?
Well, that's how Frances Barwood put it. She said, listen, he had a big family.
Yeah.
He was under a lot of pressure to come out and say something.
Right.
But he was turned the other way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not the only story of cover-up, too. Frances Barwood also took a call from a guy named Richard Curtis. Now, Richard Curtis was a disabled veteran whose hobbies were getting on the CB radio and listening to truckers. Now, at around 5 or 6 p.m. that night,
they drive down the highway.
As they drive down the highway,
kind of
that's
a weird
right.
Hobby.
Yeah, but you know, he started to hear these truckers come in, traveling south on I-17, and now you know truckers. They're saying,
breaker 109,
breaker, are you getting this? What the is
right,
that?
all over the place.
You know, so Richard Curtis goes out to his rooftop with video equipment that he had, and he records this thing with his video equipment. Now he said he got such good footage that with the refraction of the streetlights, he could see this thing pass overhead, and it was almost gunmetal gray, where the lights were like gaseous and swimming, not like normal like glare lights. But he said it was incredible video footage. Anyway, he calls Frances Barwood, and he says, "Just to let you know, I have this tape." And she says, "Well, get it to me." Right? So a couple days later, a few guys show up at the place where he was, his community hospital, and they visit him and they say, hey, we're from Frances Barwood's office. We came to get your tape. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And do you have any copies of it? He said, no, I haven't made any copies. Well, we'll get you copies, right? He calls Frances Barwood a week later and he says, well, what did you think? And she says, well, what do you mean? What did I think? What did I think of what?
Yeah.
Well, 2 guys from your office came to get the tape. She goes, I don't have guys working in my office. I'm only working with females. And so she sent out an investigator to his community hospital to find out. And the supervisor said, it was the weirdest thing. 2 guys show up in a black car, 3-piece suits, hats. They come talk to Richard Curtis asking about this tape.
Men in Black.
Men in
the
Black.
fedoras in 1997 should have been
given
red
away.
flag.
Dude, this...
Because they're either Men in Black
Yeah.
or they're part of the West Coast swing revival taking place at the time. And
This was 100 to 110
LA is
degrees
7
that
hours
day.
away.
Big Bad Voodoo Daddy was in town.
Yeah, that's right. But the supervisor recalled it being very strange, very mysterious, and it was 110 degrees out. So obviously they got that videotape. Now it even
and no one can find that footage. It's not out there?
It cannot be found because there's not a lot of. I mean, there's still some great footage of
but
the
apparently
UFO lights.
Apparently, really good.
But that's
stuff
one
is
they
taken.
wanted, you know.
All right.
And
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to ask Scott.
what the hell was that?
Hey everyone, this is Riley. I wanted to let you know we've launched our Patreon page. It's a place where listeners can help support the show and gain access to exclusive bonus content. For $5 a month, our Patreon members get special episodes like our campfire stories, movie club, and Out There episodes, where we explore our own little place in the cosmos. We also post behind-the-scenes conversations that happen during the breaks and all sorts of other bonuses. We put a lot of love into these episodes, and we make a lot of them. They're a deeper level of the show where we expand on ideas and concepts from our main feed. Our weekly show will of course always remain free, but for $5 a month, our Patreon members will gain full access to the inner sanctum of the BCC. We hope you'll join us there. That's patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub. And thanks for listening.
Kansas City. Food-wise, a city famous for its barbecue. But that's about to change. My name is W. Dave Keith, host of the podcast Taco the Town, and I believe that Kansas City is one of the most underrated, underappreciated, up-and-coming taco towns in the USA. On Taco the Town, we will shine a light on all the amazing tacos Kansas City has to offer. Kansas City is a great taco town filled with a variety of untapped taco stylings and flavors, and on the Taco the Town podcast, we won't stop until we've tasted every taco in the town. No taco table will go unturned. Each episode, we review a new taco joint with a special guest. We share taco memories, discuss taco topics, and put tacos to the test. We check the latest stories in taco news, and no taco is off the table on Taco the Town. If you love tacos, like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Play. That's Taco the Town.
All right, Scott, you're under pressure now, buddy.
Okay.
You're going to tell us, what do you think that was, man? What the hell was that?
Okay, so let me just start by saying I've driven from LA to Dallas many times, and I've been through that stretch, and it's very weird. If you guys have ever driven through there at night,
Are you on the 10?
so you take the 10, and I think that the 10 goes from California down through Phoenix and Tucson, then spits into New Mexico.
Yeah.
I remember having this, and this turned out to be nothing, but I remember just being like, this is a very strange place. It just felt like a weird place. You know what I mean? I was driving through at night and I saw these giant red flashing lights off in the distance that looked humongous. And I was freaking out because I was like, There's nothing below it. It looked like it was at the top of a skyscraper, and it was like a bunch of red lights flashing, right? And it looked like there was nothing below it off in the distance. It looked like it was 2,000 feet, 5,000 feet in the air, right? And there was nothing below it. And I was driving at night, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I was driving to Dallas for like a week, and I was going to drive right back. And I remember calling my mom the next day. I was like, I don't know what I saw in the sky in Phoenix.
Yeah.
This was in probably 2006, 2007. And my mom was like, oh, that's, the Phoenix Lights and that whole area. And I was like, yeah. And I drove to Texas, and I was there for a while, and I drove back, and I was driving back through that part in the daytime. And I'm such an idiot because I said there's mountains off there that are pitch black at night, and they have these giant lights built into the side of the mountain that are flashing.
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
planes don't
So
fly
planes
into 'em.
don't fly into it.
And
So
that's what you saw.
And that's what I saw. But I was like, that's otherworldly. That can't be real. I have no idea what that. I've never seen anything like this. Well, you've never seen because you've never driven through Phoenix at night before.
Yeah.
Right.
So, do I think that there is maybe an explainable phenomenon that happened? Maybe they say it was flares. I know that's such a bullshit excuse because I've spent my time looking at Phoenix Lights online as well.
Yeah.
And you've said a lot of stuff in here that I didn't even realize. But the whole flares explanation doesn't hold water.
Well,
to me, it
and
doesn't hold
you'll
water.
love this too.
And
because
also, I just want to say, the people from Phoenix, they're used to the mountains. They're used to lights.
And this is outside of that.
Yeah, it's like I grew up, like I said, near that municipal airport. So I saw planes, small planes, private planes, flying overhead
And
all
you-
the time.
and you get used to
start
seeing
to
what's in the
recognize,
sky.
you're like, okay, if it's got these blinking lights, those are the wing lights,
Right.
and there's this. You get you get used to your
Right.
environment.
Right.
Well, 3 Air National Guard pilots tried to reenact the Phoenix Lights on March 8th, 2000 with flares. And by all accounts, failed miserably. The video's on YouTube. You should check it out.
Okay.
The bottom line is Phoenix Lights have never been recreated or explained. So it really kind of dismantled the flare theory. And it gives a little bit more credence to Dr. Lynn Katai, when she called the Luke Air Force Base, and they were like, the lady that answered the phone, the Maryland Air National Guard was out here on a mission, Operation Snowbird, which in military is used for tactical diversion. And then Lynn Katai followed up, were they there a month prior? And she goes, no, not at all. And she goes, well, I have a photo of the same area with 3 orbs in the light. 3 orbs in the night sky in that same area, because what a lot of people don't realize is that this kind of event actually took place not just on March 13th, but there were sightings about a month prior.
Really?
There were even sightings afterwards. And to give a little bit more backstory on those lights in the sky, native cultures in Arizona and worldwide do believe that otherworldly intelligences have been visiting us since human documentation began. In fact, the Gila Native Americans living in the basin between South Mountains and the Australia mountain ranges, where the events took place, shared that they have been looking up at these orbs for centuries. They call them sky people and light beings. They are part of their culture. Interestingly enough, the Gila indigenous peoples call the Australia mountain range the gateway to the stars, Estrella meaning star in Spanish, and believe that there's a portal or gateway in that particular area. So I always find that interesting when indigenous tribes and Native American peoples back up these crazy stories with their mythology that goes, no, we know what that is.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
You hear that in Bigfoot stories all the goddamn time.
Right. Yeah. But here, I got...
I think that one of the problems I have with mythologization, or whatever you want to say.
We'll look up. That's not right.
We can make words.
Of Phoenix. By the way, only men discovered DNA, and they were tripping balls. I feel like the term Phoenix Lights does this story a disservice because it should be called like the Phoenix Mothership, because I feel like a lot of people, when they think of the Phoenix Lights, they may have seen the videos of those lights that are considered, those are supposed to be the flares over Phoenix.
Yeah.
But like you have to dig a little deeper to be like, oh, people
To
saw
find the
a
whole
fucking
story.
giant boomerang mothership. It should be called like the Phoenix
Motherships,
Yeah,
plural.
that's what I'm saying. It should be like the Phoenix Skyships or something. people are like,
this is on Dr. Lynn Katai's site, and she did it with a guy named, I forget, but it's the phoenixlights.net. Now they did a computer orientation.
we're looking at a map here.
You
Can you
printed
describe
that
it
out,
for
right?
the
You
people?
printed
Yeah,
that
these are all the different tracks of the motherships, and here's all by now. They took all the various accounts, they interviewed the witnesses, and these are the different crafts, not just one, but you'll see each of them a little different.
Now these are representations.
We're looking
these
at
are-
like
these are representations.
landscape photos that have black triangles.
So here's one with
and,
like you could see the three
boomerang
different like.
ships over
Look at the
them.
shape of that one.
We'll put all these up.
Yeah, we'll put all these up. But here's the one where it's on the leading edge. So this kind of explains why you get so many varied discrepancies of what witnesses saw, because there were so many different craft.
It's kind of like
this is the
you know,
one with
the
the-
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're alike, but they all have their own little different
Yeah,
characteristics.
you know, there
different
was even a
color bandana.
There was even a white pearl disc reported too
Whoa,
that they saw
that one
too.
that one would creep me out.
So it seemed to be like this bevy of motherships floating
So that's why
through
you were
the
saying
sky
it was a
that night.
parade.
Yeah, which is, you know, I always thought of it as one kind of massive ship.
They
But
should call them Phoenix UFO Parade.
yeah, I mean, that would
That's
be
a way
that
better
a band
name.
name.
That
Yeah.
would be a better title. Yeah.
Guys, we just started our acid rock band.
But yeah, that's a crazy story. And
Okay, so like I was saying, I saw lights that were placed on a mountain for air traffic, right? It's not that.
Yeah.
It's not flares, because obviously with the data you provided, it's been disproven by the Air National Guard.
Yeah.
So what could it be? Like, right? If it's not what everyone wants to rush to, which I still think is entirely plausible, what else could it be? Like, what's the other explanation?
you know, there's this strange phenomena attached with it as well, because there were reportings of people getting sort of telepathic messages. Now, a lot of these witnesses that were together, like in family groups and friends groups, they remember not being able to like talk to each other.
Really?
They would just witness this thing in silent reverie as it would go overhead. And then when it passed, kind of like not talking about it, right?
They all looked at each other and there were just like piss stains down everyone's pants.
But almost like a conscious, a raising of consciousness. And they all said, this was, I thought was very interesting, that after that USA Today article came out where it got national press coverage, then the floodgates opened. It's as if people go, oh my God,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we saw that.
Huh.
You know, and it was.
Do you think that's a collective, like, it's inexplicable, so I don't know what to say, and then like once someone validates it, you can talk about it, or is it like something washed over the crowd?
I
as
think
they-
what Bryce
Yeah.
is saying is that the craft or the intelligence behind the craft had an influence on the human minds.
Right.
witnessing it.
Yeah,
Right.
almost like some strange kind of conscientious
Psychic experience.
Yeah, some washover that you know, and you know, this is interesting too. Kurt Russell,
Yeah.
who was flying into Sky Harbor
I
International
honestly
that
thought you were going
night,
to say Kurt Loader, and I was
No.
like, Kurt Loader was involved.
no, had that same experience. This is a trip. Check this out. So. While most of the witnesses viewed the Phoenix lights from the ground, at least one person saw them from the sky. Actor Kurt Russell, a certified pilot, he was flying his son Oliver to Phoenix when he observed 6 glowing objects flying in a V formation over Sky Harbor Airport. We were on approach to the airport.
Oliver Hudson.
Russell told BBC.
That would
on
be
April
Oliver
27.
Hudson.
Yeah, that's right. We're
The
maybe
actor
at,
Oliver Hudson.
that's right, Michael. We're maybe
Wait, so
at
who?
Oliver Hudson.
I'm not saying it again.
We're
I'm
maybe
not falling for that trap.
We're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" Russell says he had been daydreaming and hadn't been paying attention to them. And then I kind of came out of my reverie and I said, "I don't know what they are. Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to call it in." So he does. The flight controller said they couldn't see anything on their radar, which matches what we reported. Well, I'm going to declare it unidentified. It's flying. It's 6 objects, Russell said. Afterward, he landed the plane, dropped off his son, and flew back to L.A., where he lives with his longtime partner, actress Goldie Hawn. "I never said a word," Russell remarked, "and I never thought of it." 2 years later, he continued, Goldie's watching a television show, and the show's on UFOs. Russell paid no attention to the program until the subject turned to the Phoenix lights. "And I'm watching this," he said, "and I'm feeling like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, because throughout the film, Dreyfuss's character is plagued by an image of a mountain, which he recognizes as Devil's Tower in Wyoming once he sees the landmark on the news. It's like, why do I know this?" And finally, They said that a general aviation pilot reported the Phoenix Lights upon landing, and I thought, that was me.
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
me. Russell checked his logbooks and continued and confirmed that he was flying into Sky Harbor on that night of the Phoenix Lights. And although he saw the lights, he made no reference to them in his log. The fascinating part of that to me is that it just went literally out of my head. He said Oliver never mentioned it. And had I not seen that show, I'd have never thought of it again.
It's crazy to me that you can't, like, why would you not immediately? I would be talking about that the minute I got on the
Well, I
ground.
think what they're saying is like it's
Yeah,
like
so that's
part of the
zapping you with
strange
some type of-
phenomena. Yeah.
Snake Plissken saw this fucking thing. Snake Plissken would get back in that plane and fly directly into the mothership.
Yeah.
Escape
and
from
climb
Phoenix.
into
Yeah.
the hatch and fucking punch those aliens in the face.
But it's almost as if this thing passed over. Your mind was being reprogrammed to a higher consciousness. You know what I mean? And you'd
Yeah.
only be awakened up to it later till you read
Yeah.
about it.
You know
in
what
the
was really
newspaper.
strange?
Weird.
You know what's really strange, and I've heard about this when people have talked about like witnessing stuff like this or having close encounters, having a difficult time speaking about it. I remember when I saw the figure at the window that my dogs woke up barking about. I remember when I talked to my brother-in-law about it, who was the first person I called that morning. I remember it was, and it wasn't out of like embarrassment or how do I articulate this. There was something very strange about that went along with it, where I felt like I was almost choking on my own words.
Yeah, words
Talking
fail
about
you.
it
Yeah.
was really hard. It was like I was speaking like this, like it
I
couldn't.
was gonna say you're doing it right now.
Yeah, no, I mean that was
Yeah.
that's what it was like, as if the thought did not want to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And it was really weird. Like I don't know. There's something I don't
There's
know.
yeah, that's why, I love to talk about it. There's something at play here. So
But I'm going to go back to what Scott said
Yeah.
earlier, which is, okay, what is this? What's the explanation? To go back to what you said towards the beginning of the show, which was if it's us from the future or if it's this thing, we don't fucking know any of this stuff. They've
Sure.
got like they're so far advanced. We don't know the rules that they are playing
Right.
from,
Right.
playing, they were playing with. You know,
Right.
we don't fucking know.
I mean, you've got to look down at us, and imagine what our brains trying to comprehend something that we can't comprehend. When you see those craft, and I don't know if this happened in the Phoenix Lights, but a lot of documented UFOs or crafts that are moving impossibly fast, impossibly just stopping and turning left and going the speed of sound that way.
Well,
like doing all this stuff that we're just like, well,
and
we
let's-
don't know how to do that.
and
How's
let's-
that possible?
And imagine, like, maybe from our perspective, we see 7 to 8 crafts when really those 7 to 8 crafts are part of one giant craft that is in our dimension, another dimension, and maybe thousands of parallel dimensions all at one time.
Yeah, I mean,
And we're seeing the fingers to a larger hand that's
Right.
invisible.
the
that we-
possibilities are endless.
You know what I mean?
really
That like this might just be how they appear as they break through our dimension.
Right.
But across space time and parallel dimensions, it might look like a fucking giant black tesseract. With
right.
like,
So why?
no-
so
who
what's
knows?
what? So let me ask you this: what's the purpose of? And I mean I know an answer, but what's the purpose of the government or people that we rely on to investigate things like this to say, don't worry about that. That's nothing.
Well, I have my theory that I've said on the show multiple
and
times.
it's a good one. Yeah.
But I want to hear yours first.
Well, I mean, I think I have the whole mayhem theory, which is if you acknowledge
right.
that it's real, if you acknowledge that you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's not us. We don't know what that is. You should be frightened.
Well, I think because
That's
I think the
mayhem.
follow-up question to that from the press or the American people,
How long has this been going on?
Right.
is, so what are you guys doing to protect
Yeah.
us from that?
Right.
And they'll go,
are you doing your job?
yeah, and they can go, we can't.
Yeah.
Suddenly, government military is rendered irrelevant.
Right. They can't protect
They
us.
can't protect us,
Yeah.
and so then we have a real fucking problem.
Right, that's chaos.
Because
I mean,
it's created a paradigm which the government has admitted that its
doesn't
institution
know. Yeah.
is irrelevant. It can't protect us, so they will never
They'll
ever
never do it.
fucking do it.
Right.
Well, and better ufologists than us pinpoint the kind of like the time and place where really the cover up started, and it was really in 1947
Yeah,
on that
Roswell.
Roswell crash,
Yep, yeah.
and that's really kind of started and kicked off the hey, let's kind of keep this to ourselves. Let's not let this cat out of the bag just quite yet, and it's been snowballing ever since.
Yeah, 70 years.
Yeah.
It's easier to discredit, put out disinformation.
You know,
discount.
they call it the lost century. You know, that
Yeah.
lost century of technology that we could have had, that 0 point energy that could have been helping to feed this planet and keep energy out of oil and coal, and
know.
you know, the lost century. But yeah, very interesting
It's
stuff.
fascinating stuff.
Nuts.
Good story, Bryce.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
and Scott, great guest.
Yes.
Great guest.
I
Thank you
tried
so
my
much
best.
for
I
this.
tried my best.
We have to wrap up another club session, unfortunately. Where we're in June right now. What's going on? Where can people find you? Is there anything coming up you want to plug?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we go back. You and I go back to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which will be airing
Yeah,
this fall
baby.
Awesome.
on CW. And then, other than that, I'm developing some of my own stuff and filming other things. Who knows when that'll be available to be seen?
Awesome.
But you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Scott M. Foster.
Sweet.
Scott
And
and
can
Foster.
people find that short you and Pete did with Mikey? Is
Yeah,
that available?
you know what? That will be up on Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon Video,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. You can watch, because our old one. So we have one called Must Feed and Water that's up there right now, and then the next one with Pete Gardner, who's also on Crazy X
And the
been
voice
on-
of
and
Sassy the Sasquatch.
That's right. He and I did a short film called "Wake the Riderless Horse," which it was in the festival circuit now, and I'm hoping we can get that on Amazon soon.
It's great. Keep an eye out for that. I highly recommend it. Riley, Spindrift's going on tour soon.
That's correct. Throughout a couple weeks in July, so check that out. Coming to a city near you.
Sweet.
Yeah, check them out on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you can find them.
We have a new single that just was just released in India.
Oh, great.
With a Bollywood singer.
Oh, no way.
awesome.
What's it called?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
All right.
I don't
Fair enough.
speak Hindi.
That's
All right.
true.
Wow.
She did the title.
Oh,
but
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one that's in Hindi.
Okay.
So
Got it.
check that out.
Spindrift,
Wow.
parentheses, the one that's in
Hindi song.
And Bobcat Show, you're coming out in July.
Yeah, Misfits and Monsters airing on True TV July 11th. So I think mine will be July 18th,
Okay,
which
great.
is my son's birthday. And check us out on our social media accounts. We're on Twitter at Bigfoot_C Club, and on Instagram and Facebook. We do a great job at adding pictures and photos to these to go along with these stories.
Sweet. That's great. And let's see. Oh, my new comic book adventure van will be in comic book stores this August. Go to your local comic shop. Order it, please. We're doing 5 issues to kick off the run, and hopefully many more after that.
Yeah.
I should be at Comic-Con. In fact,
think you and I will be at Con.
down there for sure
Oh,
doing
nice.
Yeah.
a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend live
Show.
performance.
Yep, live
that'll be
on
great.
July 24th and 1st in San Diego. I believe tickets have gone on sale.
I believe so. You can go to Rachel Bloom's website.
Yeah, but if you're down for Comic-Con, come see me. I'll be signing with Golden Apple, I'm sure. I don't have all the details yet. Still a month out. And I'll let you know as we get closer. But come see the show down in San Diego.
Yes, please
it's a
do.
fucking great time. It's so much fun.
It's a funny musical show.
It's great.
It's a good time.
That's awesome.
So come check us out. Once again, I want to thank Scott Michael Foster for being
Yes.
here.
Thank you, guys.
As I often do, and I apologize, I would definitely want to thank, often forget, I want to thank Riley Bray, our
Hell
producer, and
You're welcome.
Suneaters for our theme music from the song Come Alone, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. Please check out their work. It's really great. And until next week, we remain the Bigfoot Collectors Club. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody.
Yeah, keep looking up.
Yeah, and check out our Patreon if you want for some bonus episodes and to support the show. Love you, everybody.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Bye.